In July of 2019, New Mexico followed several very forward-thinking states and adopted some new legislation to help with missing persons cases. Here at krqe.com, we learn about it. New Mexico has joined 7 other states requiring information about missing and unidentified people to be shared with a national database. Of course, we're talking about NamUs, and essentially this type of legislation forces local law enforcement to be sure to register unidentified bodies and missing persons cases with NamUs. We know that is such a critical step. It is really important in terms of helping those records match up, but also helping match up records that could span across state lines or be from anywhere in the country. Now, will this help with the case that we're looking at today of Jean Johnson is the question. We've got a lot of details. She's been missing for over 5 months at this point. She's got a family that's very concerned, and law enforcement saying they think that this is probably a foul play situation. It's time to turn on the searchlight for Jean Johnson. Welcome back to Searchlight. I'm John Lorden. Thank you so much for spending some time with me here today. And this is Jean Johnson. This is the person we're looking for. She is 70 years old, went missing in New Mexico, an area called Capitan in New Mexico. A silver alert was issued, but unfortunately, she still has not been located. So we started off this video talking about NamUs. We're going to look at the NamUs profile that's been built for her. Jean A. Johnson, a white Caucasian female. Date of last contact is May 27th, 2019. I believe that's a Monday. Missing from Capitan, New Mexico at the age of 70. She still is 70 years old. 5'6", about 130 pounds. In terms of circumstances, we don't have a whole lot of understanding around that. She was dog sitting at the time, but there was no one really around to capture whatever happened or any details about her disappearance. The owner of the dog and her daughter were kind of the people that finally made the conclusion that she was actually missing, and that actually happened on Tuesday. So we do have a period of last contact of about 2:30 on Monday, 2:30 in the afternoon. But outside of that, we don't have a ton of detail about her disappearance outside of what we can learn from the investigation. But here, for the circumstances of disappearance, Jean Johnson disappeared from her home in Capitan, New Mexico on May 27th, 2019. They're saying around 5:30 p.m. here. So it's a little interesting because the articles I'm seeing are saying last contact was around 2:30. But like I said, details on this are a bit strange. She does not have her wallet, car, or cellular phone. All of those things were left behind. For hair color here, they're noting it as gray or partially gray. In the photos, I'm seeing it looks more brown. I'm not sure if maybe she wasn't coloring it as often and now it was graying, but I'm also seeing other descriptions that are saying brown. For eye color, here they're saying blue. I'm seeing other descriptions that say green, but somewhere in the blue-green range. Distinctive physical features, mastectomy scar. Her left breast is missing. Her right breast is intact. One of her large toes has a previous fracture, but we're unknown which side. Clothing and accessories, they're not exactly sure what she was wearing on this day. Like I mentioned, no one was around her really on this day, but she does have jewelry that she typically wears. Here they're describing it as a medallion with cremation ashes that she would wear around her neck. I'm seeing other things that say it's almost like a crystal, like a bluish crystal item that is holding the cremation ashes. They are ashes from her late husband. And here they're describing it as round gray, but I'm seeing other things that are saying kind of a crystal blue type item. They don't have it listed here, but she was also still wearing her ring. I'm not sure if it was her wedding ring or not, but a ring that has a diamond in it as well. Let's learn more from the Albuquerque Journal. This is from May 31st, 2019. Officer Ray Wilson, a New Mexico State Police spokesman, sent out a silver alert on Tuesday saying Jean Johnson was last seen at her home on the 100 block of Taui in Capitan at 2:30 p.m. the day before. See, so that's, and I've seen it in a couple places where we actually have 2:30 as the last time. Interestingly, we don't have any details. It's weird that it's phrased that they're saying she was last seen at her home. If there was someone that was actually at her home that saw her, I don't know why we don't have some form of clothing details. At least, was she wearing jeans? Was she wearing a dress? Something along those lines. Kind of curious about that, but we really don't have any detail about the last person to actually see her, at least come out in these articles. Here's a quote from Officer Ray Wilson. "It is unknown what she was wearing, but she usually has on a silver wedding band with 3 diamonds." So there's a much better description on the ring. Her vehicle and personal belongings were left at her residence. And here they're saying light brown hair and green eyes, which certainly kind of matches with the photo that we're getting here. But let's continue here at Ruidoso News. New Mexico State Police said more resources are being committed to search for the 70-year-old woman. And this is just a couple days after that. They brought a helicopter in from the New Mexico State Police. They began an aerial sweep of the area. It says she was once again last seen at 2:30, May 27th, at her residence. "It's been a physical search from day one," said Sheriff Shepard. "We've searched a 2-mile or more radius around her house on foot, by road, and by horseback, with neighbors looking, as well as in some other locations in the southern part of the county in the mountain area." This is kind of a tough area because, especially with her not having her vehicle, it really makes sense that they would search around her immediate house. I'm also seeing some comments from her family that she would go walking on her property occasionally. And there's an item that's missing from her home that might suggest that she did go on one of those walks. This is a rural area. She has a driveway that has 2 gates on it. One of those gates is locked. So they're assuming that if this is an abduction situation of some kind, someone must have taken her, and then essentially they don't have their vehicle up at her house. So they had to take her down the road to get to their vehicle, to put her in the vehicle and then take off from there. So some pretty big questions right off the bat about what are the mechanics going on with this disappearance. Are we looking at something where she was just doing something normal, taking a walk out on her property? Did she have an accident or something of that nature? Or is she interacting with someone? Did someone come up to the house in some way that surprised her? I'm also curious about the sheriff's statement that they're also searching in the southern part of the county in the mountain area. I don't know if they've been tipped off to some information. I see the family's also doing some searches that are like 7 or 8 miles away from her home. So it seems to me like there's some other information that might be there that is not being released publicly. But obviously a lot of people very concerned and searching. His department has limited resources, Sheriff Shepard said. "I don't have the budget to hire helicopters or stuff like that. We're down to just doing interviews, looking for any information anybody has." And that's another interesting aspect here is when I find some information about the searches that family has been putting together, it seems like law enforcement isn't really helping them. Law enforcement is basically just telling them, hey, if you find something, be sure not to touch it. Call us in right away. We've got tips that we have to be working. So once again, this is making me wonder, do they have some information already about a foul play situation going on? And is that why they're focusing in that direction? Or maybe it's just like the sheriff is saying here, they don't have a ton of resources. Maybe they can't afford to pull together a group of officers to go and assist those community members in terms of searching. It's a little strange. I don't know. It feels like there's things at play here that are not coming out publicly, and there might be very good reason for that from the few pieces that we do get. But Sheriff Shepard is being very clear. There's a lot of this that does not make sense, he said. We need that one little piece that is going to open things wide up. We have no theories. We have no leads. We have nothing to go on. She has absolutely vanished. Now, he also does make a comment about her capacity. And, whenever we're talking about older people that go missing, this is a frequent point to come up. Are they starting to be forgetful? Are they starting to get lost? Things of that nature. He makes a clear statement here that it depends on who you talk to. Her son said that she got lost for about 2 hours one day, but made it back home. We're going to hear some different information from her daughter, who's really been kind of leading the effort in terms of the media on this case. But let's go ahead and continue over at KOB.com. This is 3 weeks later. Her daughter Heidi is now commenting. She says that she's lost without her mother and best friend. My son was very close with her. She was a wonderful grandma. She has 2 little grandbabies, Heidi said, 2 boys, and they both love her very much and miss her. Heidi said she's beginning to lose hope, but believes some kind of closure will bring her peace of mind. I knew something bad happened. She didn't just wander off. She was taken from her home, Heidi said. Continuing with another article at Ruidoso News, we get much more detail about search efforts and some of the discoveries that have happened in this case. Volunteers sought in new search for missing Capitan woman. That's from July 10th, 2019. Her daughter, Heidi Johnson of Ruidoso, said searchers will meet at 8 a.m. July 17th at the intersection of New Mexico Highway 37 and Bonito Lake Road. I went looking for that, and I think it might be Bonita Lake Road. That's the only one that I could find on Google Maps, and that's kind of the assumption that I'm making about their search area is actually a number of miles from where her house is. So here at Towie Road, we can see this is the area where her home is, but the area that they're searching is pretty far south, 8.3 miles if you're driving from one location to the other. But if you take off that hoop, I mean, I guess as the crow flies, you're looking at maybe 6.5 miles, something like that. But it looks like they're searching this area that's kind of east of Angus, and that is where we've got Bonita Lake Road, but interestingly, it is just outside of Bonito. So I don't know if we might just be getting the names a little crossed there in terms of this article, or maybe I have the wrong road. I'm not 100% sure. We're going to do 3 different areas from there, she said Wednesday. We're going to meet at the entrance, and we're going all over in Bonito. It's just one more area that we're going to cross off the list. As for reports of possible diminished capacity, Heidi Johnson said her mother was beginning to be a bit more forgetful and repetitive later in the day, but was not wandering off. So I don't know if Heidi maybe doesn't know. I'm assuming it's her brother that made the other comment. Maybe she just doesn't know about that instance. A little bit of a discrepancy, but still, of course, this is a 70-year-old woman, and we are hearing, if nothing else, she does seem to be having some type of minor memory issues. Heidi said her mother was very responsible and was watching a friend's dog when she disappeared. Although the family has lived in the Ruidoso area close to 40 years, her mother moved to a remote site near Capitan about 8 years ago, she said. And just to take another look at the area she's living in, you can see just there's not a whole lot around it. On the road, I can't even get a street view, first of all, out here. I don't know if these are purely dirt roads and the Google camera just doesn't drive out this far. But we can see even from the satellite view, it is a lot of open area, a lot of brush, and a lot of sand. And you can see there's kind of some hills that are happening around this as well. But knowing she doesn't have her vehicle, that's why I think it really made sense for them to search at least a 2-mile area around her home. But if she really went wandering off 2 miles, even someone at 70 years old, that would take them maybe 40 minutes to an hour. And that's if the terrain is not too rough. Knowing how long she was missing by the time they got on it, it could be that 2 miles is actually not a big enough search area. I mean, if she went walking off, who knows how long she could have walking before she stopped somewhere, or possibly something could have happened to her. If she was walking for 2 or 3 hours, I mean, that could really push that search area out to somewhere close to maybe even 10 miles away from her home. It's a tough thing because, like he was saying, they have limited resources. We've got the community that's pulling together and the family that's organizing searches. More comments from her daughter, Heidi. I worked all day Monday. I realized I hadn't talked to her and I tried to call. Then on Tuesday morning, I got up and tried to call again, but she still didn't answer. Right after that, my friend called me and said, "Hey, I came back in town and your mom was going to drop the dog off on her way into town yesterday and I can't get a hold of her." So Heidi leaves. She goes to her mom's house. When she arrives, she notices that her mother's front door is slightly ajar. Everything looked totally normal beside the dog in the house. So the dog was in the home. Apparently it had some accidents in the home, but other than that, nothing really looked out of place. It didn't look like there was any type of scuffle or fight that happened in the home, nothing like that. However, there was an item missing. She said the only item missing was a .357 caliber pistol that was kept in a hope chest. She only used it for protection, and she would not have gotten it out unless someone came to her house, Heidi said. Everything she owned is accounted for. Her purse and phone were locked in her car. I'm just wondering about that statement, and it's too bad we don't have something to clarify that. Is that a normal thing? I don't know many people that actually leave their purse and their phone in the car. It could be that if she had a home phone as well, that maybe that was just a normal thing for her to do, but I'm not sure. Let's talk about that in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts on people that leave their purse and their phone in the car. Might be different because she's living in an area where she has a gate that's, protecting her driveway, but I'm not sure. Other things Heidi noticed, she had her laundry bag ready to go to do the wash at Heidi's house, and the little pouch in which she carries her Derringer, that's the pistol that's missing, and phone was there. So if this is a situation where someone came to her property, and if this is an abduction, I don't know what the motive for it is. It doesn't seem to be a robbery because everything's pretty much there. It's kind of interesting to me. We have this pistol that is missing, and at least so far, Heidi says there's only one condition, and that's if someone came to the door. However, Heidi's about to give us another detail with that. She carried it even when she's walking on her property because she sees mountain lions out there. That was sitting on top of her laundry bag, ready to take out of the house. So I think she's talking about the little pouch was actually sitting on top of the laundry bag. So once again, is this pointing to the fact that she was going for a walk, or that someone came up to the house that was a bit of a surprise, or someone she didn't anticipate and she was taking it out for protection? I don't know. Two very different situations, but it seems like those are the two possibilities we need to focus on. She has two gates on her driveway, and the bottom one was locked, Heidi said. I don't know what she means about bottom one. I have to assume that maybe her home is on a hill of some kind, and maybe there's an upper gate and a lower gate, so maybe that's what she means by bottom one. Someone would have had to taken her out of the house to their vehicle outside the bottom gate. Not an impossible situation, but certainly not something you think about for most typical abductions. It seems like most of them, you'd want the person very close to the vehicle so that no one would see that you're putting someone in the vehicle. However, keep in mind the area that we're looking at. The nearest neighbors don't look like they're very close at all. All those homes are in kind of very sparse locations. So maybe they knew that about the area, and they knew that they didn't have to worry about that, and they were going to make her walk down her own driveway and get her outside that gate to put her in a vehicle. I'm really not sure. I guess the other possibility here is if she was worried about mountain lions to the point where she would carry a gun when she would go walking on her property, and if nothing's really missing from her house, I guess the only strange thing is that her door is ajar, and I don't know if it was her habit to go walking on her property without a cell phone. It could be if there's not good service out there that it wouldn't really make sense for her to carry a cell phone for walks like that. That also might justify why the phone could have been left in the vehicle normally. A lot of different contingencies here. And let me just put out the offer, Heidi, if you do see this, if you want to help us with these clarifications, if you can, please feel free to reach out to me, john@lordandarts.com, and we could line up a time to do an interview, do a follow-up segment, get some better detail out there. Based on what I can see about this case, we're really looking for someone that has information. If this is an abduction type situation, there's a good chance that someone has heard about some piece of this, might have some piece of this puzzle, and we need you to call that in. So please use the information in the description box below. I've got the contact info down there. You can call in, let the authorities know what you know, and maybe you can help solve this for Heidi and her family. But let's go ahead and continue with more details. Previous searches were performed around the property owned by Gene Johnson. Searches were also done near Laughing Horse Trail toward Capitan and along Cora Dutton Road. Continuing with another article at KOB.com. This is from September 18th, 2019. It is now 4 months after the disappearance of Gene Johnson. Heidi, her daughter, is desperate for answers. I have to have some kind of closure, Heidi said. It's all I think about. Heidi said she has visited many psychics, and they all came down to one conclusion. She's dead and buried not too far off the road somewhere, Heidi said. Heidi said one psychic was specific with details. She told me she's on private property north of Alamogordo, buried in Afghan pine trees, and the owners of that property are unaware that she's there, Heidi said. So I've talked to many families that have missing loved ones. I have not heard of a good outcome from them interacting with psychics. As a matter of fact, the type of information that Heidi's getting, I've pretty much heard the same types of conclusions from other psychics about other missing people in other cases. But that being said, I can't completely rule it out. And I've seen that in some cases, people will make an assumption that because she's on private property, that you're unable to search there. That's not exactly true. You just need the property owner's permission to search there. So if that is helpful, if they can find a property north of Alamogordo that has Afghan pine trees that they can zero in on, they might want to conduct a search in that area and know that you just have to check with the property owners, especially if the psychic's telling you that the property owner is unaware that Jean is actually there. Like I said, I personally don't put a lot of stock into information from psychics just because the families I've spoken to have said the information has not been helpful, has not panned out. In some cases, they've said the information has actually been hurtful to them. In this case, we have them telling this woman that her mother's dead. And it's a tough situation because, I'm also trying to balance the information that we're being given in media and trying to come to some reasonable direction where my gut wants to go in terms of this case. 70-year-old woman missing for 5 months. There is a chance that that is indeed the outcome. But for someone to say that they actually know that that's the outcome is a bit different, especially with information. I mean, just for me looking at satellite maps and knowing about Afghan pine trees in the Southwest, they're all over the place. That's not a very unique indicator, let's say, for trying to find these things. One of the other families I spoke to, I've talked about this example before. They have a missing person in Florida. They were told that the missing person was buried by some pine trees or some palm trees. Once again, that information it's not really helpful. Could they be right? Yeah, they could be right. But how do we use that information in a way where we can actually affect some type of change in this case? I don't know. But just so I could put it out there, Heidi, you can search on private property. I've seen some comments from her where it seems like she's saying, well, we can't search private property. You can. You just need permission from the property owner. Now, Dateline has done some coverage on this case as well. There's a few important facts that they have that I haven't seen posted anywhere else. The first is, of course, Heidi said the only item that appeared to be missing was the .357 caliber pistol that her mother kept in the hope chest. She said authorities suspected that her mother might be attempting to end her own life, but they are not assuming that anymore because the gun was eventually turned into police 2 months later. The name of the person who turned the gun in was not released by authorities. That is a very bizarre consideration. I don't know why we're not able to know who had the gun. That's a pretty important question. I don't know if it maybe showed up at a pawn shop or if a family member said, oh, actually, I had it for some reason, something along those lines. I don't know. But it seems like this is a pretty important aspect to the investigation and would certainly shift the consideration because if she was taking the gun to use it for ending her own life, obviously she didn't do that, or the person that found the gun would have found her with it. And it seems like that did not happen. So really bizarre consideration. And now that the gun's been found, there's actually nothing physically missing except for Jean, which once again pushes this case into a very strange spot. Just we have nothing for motives to talk about. I have seen in some social media on this, there's a not a Reddit thread, but a Web Sleuth thread about this case. Some people really locked onto a comment that her daughter made in one interview about the fact that they tried to get Jean to date some other men since, she's been alone now for over 7 years. and she just wasn't interested in it. And someone was wondering, well, maybe did she put someone off? Like maybe someone had arranged a date and she kind of blew the guy off, and now that could be a motivating factor. I don't know. It's certainly a possibility, but we just don't have enough to really focus in any particular direction on that. But that's what's really bizarre about this case. In terms of motive, we've got nothing. So it's really strange. I'm just bouncing back and forth between someone that would have taken her for some kind of personal reason that we just don't really understand, or this is a situation where for some reason she took a walk, the search area wasn't big enough, there was some type of accident that happened to her, and we just haven't found her yet. There's another very important consideration posted here at Dateline. Heidi said she has organized her own searches over the past few weeks using horses and ATVs to help them cover more ground. Their next search is scheduled for October 26th. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't find a Facebook group for Jean Johnson missing or something along those lines. So I will include a link to Heidi's Facebook page down below. I can see Heidi does talk about the previous searches that have happened, but even on Heidi's Facebook page, I don't find anything that's talking about this particular search that's upcoming. But I wanted to get it out there. I wanted to let you guys know, for any of our brain scratchers in the New Mexico area, if you think you can help with this on October 26th, please reach out to Heidi on her Facebook page and see if you can join the search efforts and help them. And if we do have any brain scratchers that go to help with this search effort and you actually make it out there, send me an email, please, and let me know that you did that. I'd like to thank you personally. Continuing at krqe.com, an article from October 8th, 2019. We're now after 5 months of searching, and police and her family say they are not giving up. Quote, "There's still a lot of evidence we are pursuing," said Sheriff Robert Shepard. He says that despite the detective on the case working it every day, they still have no physical evidence to prove any kind of crime happened. But still, they suspect one did. That's an interesting statement, especially when we consider that the gun has somehow found its way to police. I mean, obviously the gun might not prove that there was a crime that happened, but I would think that it would sure raise suspicions about someone interacting with her in some way where they were able to take that weapon. Unless it's something completely common, like, you know, she lent it to a family member for some reason. I don't know, but I'm really having trouble trying to understand what's going on with this case with the comments that we see flying all around it. She didn't have men in her life. My dad had died 7.5 years ago, and she was still in love with him, said Heidi. I've had like this movie reel of 50,000 things that could have happened to my mother that plays through my mind, and I would really like to know what happened so that would stop, said Johnson. And I just wanted to share that with you guys because it's just another aspect of dealing with a missing loved one that is very hard on the family members. And of course, your mind is going to scramble in every direction trying to figure out what could be going on with this case. And that's exactly what Heidi's going through here. In a interesting turn, I think this is a good use of resources. So I just wanted to point out that there's been a posting by the New Mexico Department of Game and Fish. They are requesting hunter assistance in search for Jean Johnson. You can see this post I will have in the links down below as well. They're even citing particular areas, hunters in units 34, 36, and 37. I think it's really important that they do things like this. It's great that organizations are helping in this way because so many of these cases are solved by people that are usually doing some type of recreational activity in that area. So on top of that, there is a GoFundMe for Heidi. Now, this was basically to support Heidi's efforts. She had stopped working when the search for her mother first started. I believe she is now back to working. There's kind of an update that says that, you know, Heidi is not requesting donations, but they're going to leave it open for anyone that feels like they want to still support her through all this. So on behalf of myself and my amazing supporters on PayPal, Patreon, through lordandarts.com, any which way you support the channel, thank you so much. We're going to make a donation to this to help continue Heidi's search efforts. We don't know how long this is going to go. We don't know how many other trips she might have to make out to that area. Is she going to need supplies of any kind? more posters, t-shirts, billboards, whatever it is. I want to be sure that we help in some way. So we're making a donation to this GoFundMe just as soon as I'm done filming this video. And if you would like to add more to that, I'll have a link to it in the description box below. Once again, you will also find Heidi's Facebook down there as well. Please contact her if you're interested in helping on that search on October 26th. And I will also have the Web Sleuths thread. It's just over a page long, but some interesting articles. We've covered, I think, pretty much everything that they note here. But if you want to join in on the conversation at Web Sleuths, you can do that with the link down below. So what do you think, Brain Scratchers? I'm really just bouncing back and forth between some type of strange abduction scenario taking place at her home with a motive that we have no understanding of at this point, or possibly an accident scenario. Her being forgetful, maybe forgetting where she was, walking off in a direction, not realizing which direction home was, and then putting on a considerable distance that put her outside of the search area. That's kind of the main thing that I'm worried about. But I don't know. I want to see what you guys have for considerations too. So let's talk about that in the comments down below. And once again, just my heart goes out to the family. Heidi, the invitation is always there. If you decide a year later there's some information that you need to get out there, please contact me. We'll do everything we can to get that information out and to circulate it in the area. And that's where I need your help, Brain Scratchers. Please share this video. If you have friends, family in the New Mexico area, please share this with them. Let's keep awareness raised. Let's try to drum up more resources to help with those searches. There's so much good that can happen by you sharing this video in that area. So please take a few moments, think about people you might know there, and do that. Before we end today's video, a very big thank you to PayPal supporters Emma Rostron, Mark Witt, Hillary Green, and Brandy Fry. Really appreciate you guys. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do that at www.lordandarts.com. The PayPal link is there. The Patreon link is there. Merchandise, the audiobook, all of it helps keep me here doing what I love doing, spending time with you, but also trying to help these families that are in these very, very tough situations. Take care, everyone. I'll see you back here on Friday with a brand new episode of Brain Scratch on the Lord and Arts channel.